17-year-old Samantha, or Sammy Heller. She was a senior at J.P. McCaskey High School in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and Sammy had big plans. She was charismatic, and she was excited about studying to be a veterinary assistant in the near future. Sammy enjoyed sports, softball, field hockey. She loved to hang out with her friends, and she loved horses and motorcycles and riding motorcycles. She liked to be around them and to ride them. But all of this changed when she met her boyfriend, Ben Klingler. He was 2 years older than her at 19, and when they got together, Sammy really started to do the classic domestic violence things. She started to withdraw from the family that she absolutely adored. She started skipping classes to spend time with Ben, and when her family found out about this, they tried to make her break up with them. They tried to keep them apart, but Sammy wasn't having it. And after one particularly bad argument with her mom, Sammy's mom finally decided, you gotta move out. And she thought that Sammy would not necessarily call her bluff, but say, okay, mom, I won't date him anymore. But Sammy moved in with Benjamin just briefly, and then I believe they had a fight. I really couldn't find out the exact contents of this fight. There's not an actual lot about their relationship online, about the domestic violence that happened between the two of them, and that's okay because I'd rather not get into all those explicit details. But anyway, Sammy ended up living with her aunt. In an interview I watched with her mom, like, heartbreakingly just said that telling Sammy to move out was the worst decision that she ever made, because really she thought that she wouldn't do it, but you know how headstrong we are as teenagers. Now, from what I can tell about Ben Klingler, he was incredibly controlling of Sammy. He controlled everything: what she wore, who she saw, what she ate. This couple dated on and off for 2 years, and by reports of Sammy's friends, Ben was physically and mentally abusive to Sammy. Eventually, the domestic violence in this relationship took its toll, and like I said, Sammy's family really did everything that they could to keep her away from Ben, but it didn't work. In 2012, their relationship had really escalated, and in fact, Ben had gotten in trouble with the police. He was crash his car into a guardrail. He's never really explained what was going through his mind at the time, but I can't believe that he didn't believe that this would kill both of them and not just Sammy. This high-speed crash scene was an absolute mess. There are pictures of it all over online if you want to see that sort of thing. You can't see Sammy or anything, it's the after pictures, but Sammy had been partially thrown from the car. She was pretty badly injured, but she was still alive. She was face down on the grass with her legs still in the car. She apparently made some type of noise. Obviously, she's in pain. She is hurt from this accident. Ben realizes, hey, she's not dead. He is disappointed. He doesn't regret his actions in any way, this is my assumption, because he takes off his seatbelt, gets out of the car, goes around to where Sammy is on the grass, and he lays on her. He covered her head and torso with his body. Witnesses who pulled up to this crash heard Sammy say, "Get off of me, get off of me." But Ben lay on her and slowly smothered her to death. He was pretending to drift in and out of consciousness, and initially people thought that he had been thrown on top of Sammy in the impact. A passing motorist stopped, as I said. They called 911. When he spoke to the operator, he asked him several times whether or not he should move Ben off of Sammy, but he was told not to do anything until the paramedics arrived, understandably, in case he caused more harm. "Help is coming to move them the right way," the operator said. "Help is being dispatched." In this 911 call, which I heard snippets of, you can hear Sammy in the background, and you can hear Ben moaning, but Ben does not move off of Sammy. When the paramedics arrive, Sammy is pronounced dead, and Ben was taken to Hershey Medical Center. Based on medical records that were released, investigators later concluded that Ben was faking being unconscious while he was on top of Sammy. In the wreckage of the car, detectives found marijuana, money, a lot of money, a digital scale, a pipe, pills that I couldn't find out what kind of pills they were, and a black air pistol. Sammy's family was absolutely devastated by the events of this night. Of course they were. And they erected a simple cross at the crash site in her memory. But they really suspect that Sammy's death was not an accident. Sammy's autopsy revealed her cause of death was homicide. Yes, she had multiple traumatic injuries from the crash, but there was evidence of asphyxia that was consistent with someone sitting on her. Sammy could have survived this, but Ben Klinkler, I don't even care what his last name is, made sure that she didn't. Police reconstructed this accident because it was pretty suspicious, and they saw that there were no brake marks on the road. They concluded that Ben was wearing his seatbelt when they crashed, so there was no way that he had been ejected from the vehicle reportedly threatened to kill the both of them in a car accident. They had been on the phone, and he had said, "If you don't hang up the effing phone right now, I will kill both of us. I'll run this car off the road." So, this made it pretty obvious to the police that this is exactly what he had done. So, Ben was arrested, and he was charged with criminal homicide. If a death occurs in an accident, the driver is usually charged with homicide by vehicle. But this was murder. And he faced 9 other charges as well, including drug and vehicle violations. The district attorney said that this case is an example of how good police work can make a real difference. At first glance, this just appeared to be another tragic vehicle accident. However, the police worked hand in hand with forensic experts, and what they found was far more sinister and criminal. As a part of a plea deal, Ben pled guilty to third-degree murder at Lancaster County Court. The court heard that he had believed Sammy was pregnant, but it was reported later that she was not. The overwhelming fact of that really shocked everyone was that Ben tried to kill Sammy and failed, and then he made sure he finished the job. Ben appeared for sentencing and stood up and apologized to Sammy's family for suffocating her. He said, quote, "I accept full responsibility for the loss of a very special person." He then turned to Sammy's family and said, "I want you to know with all of my heart, I'm sorry, really sorry." End quote. Sandy, Sammy's mom, told the judge that Ben had broken her heart and turned her into a prisoner in her own home. She agreed to Ben's third-degree murder charge she really didn't want to go to trial and have to hear all the details, but she agreed to the plea because this guaranteed that he would be locked away and unable to hurt other women. She said to Ben, "I want you to have nothing else to do in prison than to think about how you took my daughter's life and destroyed ours." Ben hung his head and sniffled as the judge called him a bully. And the judge said, "Today is the first day I have seen any degree of humanity or emotion from you. You treated Sammy like an object, and when that object became an inconvenience, the object was removed from your path." Ben was sentenced to 56 years in prison. He decided recently that he wanted to withdraw his third-degree murder plea and go to jail. He said that his attorney gave him bad advice and that they declined to fully investigate potential defenses. Judge Miller denied this request. He said that there was no merit to Ben's claim. He said that Ben had become dissatisfied with his sentence since the plea because the harsh reality of the lengthy sentence and real life in jail had set in. It fails to negate the fact that on August 29th, 2014, Ben stood before the court fully versed in the facts of his case and charges against him, and he entered a knowing and voluntary plea of guilty. Mr. Klinkler's current displeasure of his sentence or hindsight regret of his decisions cannot change this. There was a hearing last year his and Sammy's relationship, and Ben's prior threat to intentionally crash the car with Sammy in it. So, I don't think that this is the last that we have seen of Ben Klingler. I think that he will try to get his case appealed again and again because he's a coward and he can't sit in jail and face reality. I did read, in the True Crime Daily video that I watched, they were saying that when he was taken to the hospital, he said that he had a head injury and he couldn't remember any of the night leading up to the crash or anything after the crash, but he could remember that they said that that could happen because he had a head injury, which doesn't make any sense to me because how do you remember what the doctor said, but you don't remember any of that night? It was also said in this interview that someone, and I don't remember who it was, and you'll really have to forgive me, I couldn't find any written documentation of this, but that he was heard speaking to another girl, which was believed to be his current girlfriend, and he was telling her that something along the lines of, now, he said something like, now she won't get in our way anymore, or now she won't get between us anymore. So he was really basically admitting to killing her because he thought she was pregnant and he didn't want to have to deal with any of that. And to me, that makes you a grade A1 coward. Like, okay, fine, you don't want to have anything to do with your kid. Peace out, dude. Like, I'm sure she could have done way better than you anyway. And, whatever. I mean, you really should pay child support. But, whatever. Turns out she wasn't even pregnant anyway. So you were freaking out over nothing. Maybe it was just, a false positive. Or maybe she was just a couple days late and hadn't even taken a test yet. I couldn't find any details to verify that either way. All I know is that the medical examiner did say that she was not pregnant at the time of her death. It is absolutely crazy to me that he climbed out of the car and went over and sat on her. I read 2 different articles. I read a lot of different articles, but I read one that he literally put his buttocks in her face. But if she was face down, that wouldn't work. So maybe he sat on her shoulders. And then I read one that said that he draped himself over her. Now, based on the pictures that I've seen of him, he's not a really big dude, but she was injured. Now, I didn't find, and they didn't release what kind of injury she had. They did say that she could have potentially survived this. So maybe she had a broken leg or something. I don't really know. But, potentially if something was injured enough that she maybe couldn't get him off of, if he was on her back, I can't even imagine, my 15-pound dog lays on my back, and sometimes I wake up and I'm like, oh my god, I'm paralyzed, which is stupid, but, I can't imagine having a grown man, laying across me. I'm injured, maybe I had internal injuries to get him off. It is no wonder she was crying out for help. I cannot imagine what the bystanders that witnessed that were experiencing, because I honestly think that there's no way I could have stood there and listened to her cry for help and not gotten him off of her. There's just no way I could have done that. There's just no way. I'm telling you, every time I film, my neighbor comes home. It's like he's got ESP and he just knows. Anyway, I can't imagine the survivor's guilt of the people that didn't even know her, that heard her cry for help. I understand if you're not a medical person and you're, like I am, so I would know I'm not an EMT, so I would know sort of, how to move him to make sure that I didn't injure him further. So, when he was too much of a narcissist, he wouldn't have tried to kill himself. And I don't know if that thought ever went through Ben's head. If I hit this guardrail at 115 miles an hour, am I gonna live? Because I feel like it had to be like a split-second decision to hit the guardrail, because they don't do guardrail down every inch of the road. So he had to see that guardrail and think, I'm gonna hit that. Like, here it goes. Absolutely horrifying. The picture is like the guardrail is all crumpled and it's through the car and out Sammy's door, so I know that it injured her somehow. I know that it did. But to read that she could have lived from her injuries if this creepazoid had not laid on her made me so furious. And when I get furious, then I have to share the cases with you, so y'all can be furious with me. Anyway, thank you guys so much